All right, I know I haven't scheduled this live, but I think it's important to get into it and talk about some things that I would like to cover. The goal of this is really to maybe answer your questions if you are joining. I know it would have been best if I scheduled this well in advance, but honestly, I just have to kind of make do with whatever time I have available to cover the things I want to talk about. So let me just set up everything here. And I'm going to get started. Just give me a second. So really, the biggest thing going on right now when it comes to any cadet program is really the Speedbird program. And I don't know, most of you have actually found my channel through that program. And of course, if you've subscribed to the channel, and really, I focus more on the people that have subscribed to the channel because, my goal is to be able to provide value to you all in some form, in some way or the other. So, that's great. That's great. I see the comment, Tom. Thank you. Hi, Mark. Hi, Statue. Amar. I'm going to read your comments here. Just give me a second. I'm trying to set up everything, make sure everything is working as it should. But the key thing is, my goal is to be able to answer your questions and give you some necessary tips. The reality is, I've covered so many topics and subjects in so many videos, and I know that it's hard for you all to really watch those videos because honestly, it's time consuming. But I want to be able to answer your questions. If you follow me on Instagram, send me a message. I'll respond to you. I'll try to give you as much information as I can based on what I know. And my goal is to be able to give you this information so that you are better prepared if you're going for an interview, if you have a cadet program interview coming up. My goal is to be able to help you just feel more comfortable. There are no guarantees in anything. There's no guarantee in life, right? But if you have the necessary tips and tools and tricks and that you can use to your advantage, and I have that information, I'm going to give it to you. So that's really what this life is going to be about. So please feel free to share. If you have questions, feel free to leave in the comment section. Don't forget to share this with a friend. If you know a friend that is going through this program as well, or this, cadet programs, because there are so many of them going on at the same time. But I think the main one right now is the Speedbird program that is currently, depending on what school you're in. You might be going for your interview. You might be praying for your interview. You might have done your interview already. Some have already done theirs. So, my goal is just to be able to help as much as I can. So I'm going to read the comment here real quickly. I appreciate the amazing timing for upcoming assessments. That's great. Thank you for your video on Wizz Air. Okay, I'm going to apply. Well, good luck to you, Statue. I'm wishing you the best of luck. Of course, if you apply and you have any questions in regards to how to prepare, how to get started, things like that, I'm going to give you as much information as I can. When British Airways opened, when British Airways and TUI were open, that'll be next year for Amer. That'll be next year for both of them. Hi, Adaji. All right. Would I recommend going straight into training after school? Or would you say getting a degree is more beneficial? All right, let me answer that. I think it is important that you, and I don't know if you guys can see these comments. I'm trying to figure out a way how I can make it appear. Honestly, I still don't know how to do all this, any of this stuff. I'm sorry, but don't do this for a living, right? So you gotta bear with me. How can I let it show on my in message? Okay, so that's okay. I think I can do that. All right. Did it go away? All right, to answer that, the first thing is you don't need a degree to become a pilot. All you need is a high school certificate or high school diploma, really. And just a second here. All right. You don't need a degree to become a pilot. All you need is a high school diploma, right? But here's something that you need to keep in mind as let's say you go for training right away, you'll be young. So that's going to be a good thing, and it's going to work in your advantage to be young when you start flight training, especially as you start your career with an airline. So starting young is very good. You're able to move up the ranks and seniority over time, and you're able to stay there for a very long time, which is great. However, without a degree, there are some positions you are unable to apply for. And there's some internal positions that do open up within these airlines that often will require that you have a degree, especially roles that may be related to safety or management roles. Some of them would require that you have a degree. And without a degree, that means you're unable to apply for those positions. So that's a downside to it. Now, like I said, for the job of becoming a pilot, you don't need a degree. However, for some roles that you may be able to apply for, if you had a degree, you won't be able to apply to them because you don't have it. So that's the downside to it. The other thing to think about having a degree or having a degree is that without a degree, if something happens to your flying career, then there's always that problem of how do I keep food on the table? And as we know nowadays, yes, you don't need a degree to get jobs in most places, but as a pilot, most of your skills and experiences are unfortunately non-transferable to other jobs. What do I mean? So let's assume that you worked in a desk, in a bank, right? And you work as a cashier or whatever you may work as. You can easily transfer that knowledge or that skill, because it's mostly just managerial skills for most part. You can transfer it to another role in another company. But when it comes to flying, honestly, flying is flying. If you are going to transfer your skills to something else, it has to be mostly flying as well. So if for any reason, say you lose your medical or you lose your job or the airline shuts down, the only options would be to apply to another airline. You see what I mean, right? So the point here is it is very important that you think about that. Think about it. Medical is a big deal also for most people. As you get older, as you age, things happen. So medical stuff may come up, and you want to make sure that you have options. You want to make sure you have options when it comes to keeping or getting a job. So that's really where a degree often becomes necessary, but you don't need it to get a job. The next part of the question is it common to see 20, 21-year-olds flying commercial airplanes? Well, so in order for you to get your ATPL, you need to be at least 21 years old. So if you're 21, yeah, it's possible. It's not common though. That's important. It's not common, but it's possible. I hope that answers your question. Let me move to the next one here. This is Ashke Dewan. It says, other than Canada, which countries provide free type rating if selected? US, I guess. Yes, that's correct. US will, if you are selected, whether through a cadet program or even just hired as a job, assuming you already have your ratings, then the airline will give you the training that you need to fly the airplane. You don't need to go get your type rating. However, in some other countries, in different parts of the world, you would have to actually get your type rating. You would have to pay for it, and that can get very expensive. Sorry, it's not a question around cadet schemes, but what's the biggest challenge you faced in your career? That's a good one. I mean, honestly, let me think. Biggest challenge. I would say, the most recent one has been on COVID. All right. COVID was one, because you have to, we're all in a position where you're not sure of your job, right? You're not sure if your job is secure. You're not sure if you're safe. And mind you, other airlines or some airlines are shutting down around you, laying off pilots and things of that nature. So yeah, it was a difficult time. The other most challenging, or make sure I'm referencing the question properly. The other part to that is when I had to switch jobs. All right. I was with an airline and I had to switch another airline, and I had to really think about, is this the right move? That was difficult, but I think the COVID part was the most difficult one for me. To make sure I answer all questions, do you agree with what, let me see, I'm trying to read this one. What pilot attitude test consists of? Do you agree with what the pilot attitude test consists of? To answer a question, I don't know what you meant by that question, but I'm guessing you're asking what pilot aptitude test consists of. There are so many aptitude tests out there. You have, logical reasoning, you have verbal reasoning, you have so many of them actually. Like I can't even list all of them. And by the way, I do cover this as well on, if you check my YouTube channel and you go to the links in the bottom, you'll see a program called PASS. They do offer all these programs for you to practice if you're preparing for your aptitude test. I think that's what I would recommend. I can't list all of them at the top of my mind right now because every airline do focus on different areas and you have to be able to, get through them in order to get selected. All right, just to make sure I'm moving to the next thing here. I think I answered that already. Adaji, to answer a question about what do you call it, scholarship programs for international students, unfortunately, that's always the difficult one for us to find, because every country only tailors their program to their citizens. So that means if you're a non-citizen or if you don't have the right to live and stay in the country, you won't be sponsored or you won't be selected. So that's something that, unfortunately, that's just what it is. So I always tell people, if you're looking for programs to sign up for or scholarship programs, start within your own country, start from where you're from, and then maybe expand from there. Now, there are some programs that are sponsored through ICAO or ICAO. There's some programs that are sponsored through different aviation organizations like, Boeing, Airbus. But what I've realized is that these programs are often that the programs that are offered by the airlines are often, I'm sorry, I'm getting distracted. All right. These programs that are sponsored, that are offered by aviation organizations out there, they are usually tailored to specific professional bodies. All right. So that means if you are not part of that professional body, you are likely not going to get that scholarship as well. And that's why I always say also, if you are thinking of becoming a pilot, you should try to be part of an aviation organization, be part of them, because that's where most of the scholarship programs get offered. All right. It's only going to go to the people that are members. So that's something to keep in mind. Unfortunately for international students, it's quite hard to get sponsored by a foreign country. It's really hard, Luis, I see. Hi, Steven. I've made it through. Let me pin this one just so that I can. All right. It says here, I've made it through to the FTE interview this week with BA. There's likely a technical aspect to the questioning, and I was wondering how in-depth you believe this would be. Now, from what I know, right, based on the information that I have or what I've heard in the past as well, usually they don't get too technical. They may ask simple questions like, how can a pilot conserve fuel, right? Or save fuel, or they can ask that question in different ways. They can ask that question in relation to sustainability. They can ask that question in relation to helping the airline reach its target goals, right? Of maybe sustainable aviation goals. The other part to that is how the airline can also become profitable, right? So the question about in relation to being technical, they don't get too technical. That's what I found anyway. But I would say if you're an aspiring pilot, you should be familiar with things like how does an airplane fly? You should be familiar with things like how does an airplane fly? How is lift generated? What is drag? What is thrust? how does the relationship of the lift formula, right? Those are things that you should kind of be familiar with if you're going for these interviews, so that if you're asked any questions that are technical, at least you have something to say. All right. I'm sorry here. All right. The next one here is, let me do that. What are the odds of an international student getting an instructor job after training in the US? So this is honestly how majority of people get their hours, whether you're an international student or not. It doesn't matter. The important thing is, as long as you have the right documents to work. So for example, as an international student, you need to have either the F1 or the M1 documents. Preferably you want to have the F1 visa or I-20. All right, that would let you work for a certain duration of time after you've completed your training. So I always encourage a lot of international students, if you're coming to the US to train, try to make sure that you apply for an F1 visa. All right, M1 lets you work, but I believe it's only for 6 months. And not a lot of schools will hire you with M1. So focus on getting an F1 visa. That will usually give you at least a year of OPT, optional practical training. And when you finish your training, you're now an instructor, the flight school can hire you. The other thing I would say is, if you're applying to a flight school to come train and you're planning to become an instructor, try to find out if that school actually hires students after completing their training. If they don't, then you might want to apply to a place that offers that option, all right, so that you don't finish your training and you don't have a place to get your hours. All right. I'm just trying to go through the questions here real quick. Bear with me. All right, the next one is I'm an international student with family in the USA. I'm set on coming over to do my flight training, and I'm thinking of taking a loan. What is your opinion on loans as an international student? For this one, I think when it comes to taking a loan, it really boils down to, taking what you really need, right? Loans, you have to pay it back. So if that's what you have to take to get your training done, then go ahead and do it. Because at the end of the day, you're getting a job that will pay you a lot of money over the course of your career. So if you can get your training done, the sooner the better. And, make sure you have good terms that you're agreeing to in terms of the loan, whether it's interest rates. And as an international student, it might be hard for you to get that loan because you may not have any credit history. So you may need somebody to co-sign the loan for you. And that can generally be a problem because now the person is on the hook if you do not pay back that loan. So that can get very sensitive for some people. They might try to avoid it, even if they're family members. But my advice to you is, if you have the ability to raise the funds, either through loan, whether through family, whatever means you have to raise the funds for your training, then go ahead and get it done, right? The sooner the better. The next one here is, let's see. Sure. Hi, Stephen. I'm applying for permanent residency in Canada so that I can join the Air Transat cadet pilot program. I'm in Uganda. Is it a good idea? So here's the thing, right? It's a cadet program. You're not having to pay for the training. You're not having to, well, I'm hoping you're not having to pay for it, by the way. And generally speaking, if it's a fully sponsored program, because I'm not too familiar with the Air Transat cadet pilot program, but if it's a fully sponsored program, then it's a great deal for you. If it's not a fully sponsored program and you have to pay for it, then you should definitely consider the job options that are available to you, in the sense, how long would you have to stay with the company? Remember, you are paying for it. So if you're paying for it, do you have any commitments to the company, to the airline? If there are commitments, make sure they are favorable terms, all right? So that you don't pay for the training and then you find yourself stuck with the airline and you don't have a lot of options, so make sure you look into that carefully before you sign any document. All right. So the main reason for this video, like I said, is mostly to talk about some of the interview stuff, right? Of course, if you have questions regarding interviews, please put it in the comment section or the chat section. I'll be able to answer your questions. So there are some common aviation terms, all right, that you should be familiar with when it comes to going for your interview. I'm sure a lot of you have heard about STAR. I'm sure you've heard about TDOTA. Now, I don't have any material in front of me right now, and I'm just going through this, with my mind, because I've gone over this so many times. And when you are asked any question during an interview, you want to make sure that you have a structure or a structured manner in which you're going to answer that question. Now, one of the things I always tell to a lot of people, or say to a lot of people, is your interview, if you have your interview dates booked already, I would hope that you've already been doing some work before that day. And your interview, like everything you're going to say, everything that will come out of your mouth shouldn't be something new to you. And I'm talking about maybe your experiences, maybe the examples you're going to use, maybe the stories you're going to tell. Everything should have been well thought out before you show up to that interview. And most importantly, you also want to practice some of the concepts. Now, one of the concepts that I talk about a lot, I don't think I've made a video on this on my YouTube channel, but think about, have you been in a situation where you show up to an interview or you're talking to somebody, all right, let's just a friend, a colleague, and you could tell that they're not paying attention, all right? That's because maybe through their body language, maybe through the way the conversation is actually developing, you could tell that they're losing the bits and pieces of the information that you're sharing with them. If you go into an interview, you want to make sure that you are paying attention to the person that is listening to you, that is interviewing you. The worst thing you can do on the day of your interview is for you to be caught up in your mind, all right, because of nerves, because you're worried, because there's just a lot of things going on, and you're constantly asking yourself, you're in your own mind, asking yourself, how are you doing? Don't worry about how you're doing. Focus on the question and the person interviewing you. In the process of you being distracted by what is going on in your mind, on the stress and the pressure you're experiencing on that day, you would lose bits and pieces of information, all right? And the worst thing is for you to get asked the question and then you say the wrong thing or you give the wrong answer. The other thing also to remember is, generally speaking, some of these people will make you feel comfortable during the interview, and some of them will make you uncomfortable. So it all depends on who you get. And these things are done on purpose. They are there to make sure they test your limits in some form or the other, whether it's how you manage workload, how you manage pressure, how you manage just the stress of the day, how you manage your stress. And if you're lucky, if you get a nice person, they may be able to make you feel relaxed and get you to calm down and feel comfortable, right? But then if you get some other people, they may make you feel a little bit uneasy. And that is not because you've done anything wrong. It's just, maybe that's just their nature. The other thing also to remember is, just because they are not looking at you, just because they are not responding to what you're saying, doesn't mean that they're not listening. So it is very important that you remain grounded in what you're saying. And that's why practicing is so important. You should have done your own homework before you get into that room, before you even show up on that day. You don't want to memorize things. Know your stories, know your structure, all right? Because you want to have a structure. Know exactly the competencies you're trying to demonstrate on that day and be very versed with them. But when you show up into that interview room, you want to make sure that you are present. So your listening skills, right, will be tested. Your communication skills will be tested on that day. Your ability to manage pressure will be tested on that day. Your ability to remain flexible and adaptable to whatever situation you're thrown at, whatever situation is thrown at you, will be tested. All those things are somehow related to your competences. And it's not really about what you say. All right. It's really about how you deliver that information. And what you say is important, but if you are very disorganized, if you are very, if you're unable to manage the workload or the pressure of the day, then it's not going to look good on you. So you want to just make sure that you put yourself, in a place where you can succeed. The other thing I'm going to mention to you or say to you is, when it comes to listening, all right, paying attention to the person interviewing you, make sure you also remember, if you ask a question that you do not know how to approach, or you don't know how to answer that question at the moment, it's okay to pause and think, right? But don't spend too long thinking. You only would have, generally speaking, for these interviews, they will only last 35, 40 minutes. And once they see that you're struggling with the question, they move to the next thing. And what does that mean for you? It means that you've lost points. If you don't want to lose points, you want to make sure that you pay attention. One, so you listen very well. Then two, you want to make sure that you are able to listen for the key points in that question. And I use the terms elements and subject. But the point is, let's say you ask the question, what would you do if your captain made a mistake, right? The captain is one party in that question. You are the next person in that question. But the question starts with you. So what would you do? So the first thing you want to start listing out will be the steps that you will take, and go into detail of the steps you will take. Let me give you a good example of what I mean. A lot of times people would jump straight into, oh yeah, they're just going to tell the captain to correct it, or they're going to point the captain in the right direction, or they're going to show the captain the right procedure in the checklist. And in as much as those things are true, that's not probably what you want to start with. The first thing is, you want to understand the reasoning why the captain has done something. Because what if there's a new development in information that you are not aware of? What if the procedure changed yesterday and the company released a new procedure that you haven't caught up to? So you first of all need to establish the fact that that was truly a mistake before you start to try to correct. And there's an acronym for that, and that is PACE. I don't know if you guys have heard PACE. If you have, all right, P stands for probing. All right, that means you want to inquire. You want to find out what has, if it's truly a mistake, if that was an intentional thing, if it was just the captain, trying to cut corners, things of that nature. But you have to do it the right way also. And that's where your empathy, right, your people skills come in. If you're not demonstrating those people skills during the interview, well, the person interviewing you is thinking to themselves, would I want to fly with this type of person for 4 days? So it's very important that you probe. And the next thing is the A, which is, you want to alert the captain to the mistake. You want to bring it to their attention. Why is it important that you speak up? A lot of accidents in aviation has occurred due to the fact that a subordinate first officer or a subordinate member of the team chose to stay quiet, even though they've observed a mistake or an error that has been made by a superior team member, right? So your captain, you're a first officer, and I think I've talked about this in the past where I talk about power distance, or they call it cockpit gradient. The key thing here is, as a first officer, if especially as a cadet, they don't want to see that you can speak up. They want to see that you can challenge. And I use the word challenge carefully, because it's not just necessarily, challenging them or the captain or the superior team member. But the key thing is to be able to raise awareness to the error that has been made by somebody superior to you. So you have to be able to demonstrate that in the process of alerting. All right. And I think this is something that is often missed by a lot of candidates, because they just want to jump into correcting. All right. But anyway, from the next thing, and I wish I could show you, I like teaching and I like to write things down on board and all that, but I can't do that here. But the point here is, you want to make sure that you alert the person to the error. The next thing is the C, right? Where you then challenge the person. You challenge in the sense, you bring it to their awareness, you correct them, you show them the right thing to do, or whatever that may be, right? Depending on the scenario. And if nothing is still being done, then you may need to take an evasive action, right? If it's something that is safety critical, so maybe it's an approach and the captain is not going around, well, what would you do? Would you step on the radio and let the ATC know that you're going around, or let the ATC know you're unstable and you want to go around, or would you have to take controls? I mean, you don't want to take controls, depending on the situation. But remember, there's also a possibility that the captain is incapacitated, and the captain is not responding to you because the captain has lost consciousness. So every situation requires you to think deep. And this will lead me to my next important point that I need to share with you guys, right? When you go into an interview, you want to make sure that when you ask the question, don't just give the surface level answer. It's always easy for us to go straight to the surface level answer and forget about the fact that there's so many points that you can mention that will demonstrate that you think beyond just the surface level. And this is how they test your critical thinking skills. A good example. What can a pilot do to increase? I'm thinking on my mind now. All right, let's talk about. I'm thinking about a question in my head. What can a pilot do to increase the profitability of an airline? Right. This is one that I recently was thinking about or seeing anyway. And that question, right? A lot of people would think, okay, yeah, single engine taxiing, saving fuel, and for what else? Generally speaking, that's what will come to mind as a pilot, right? You want to fly as efficient as possible, right? Save fuel, conserve fuel. Those things are good, right? But what about the next level things? What about providing good customer service? What about representing your brand in the right way, right? What about promoting the brand, promoting the company in the right light? For example, the way you dress, you're representing a brand. Your uniform you're wearing, you're representing a brand. Now, those wouldn't be the first things you mentioned. The first obvious ones you mentioned would be, of course, saving fuel, conserving fuel, flying efficiently, flying as high as you can, single engine taxiing, shutting down engines when there's an extensive delay. The list can go on. Flying clean when a lot of people could have maybe extended the flaps and slats and all this stuff to configure for landing. Maybe you could delay that and save fuel, which means that overall you save the company the cost of cost of fuel. The other thing also is, cost of maintenance. For example, if you're the type of person that lands and you're harsh on the braking, or your landings are terrible, right? You're going to increase the maintenance cost of the airline. I mean, it's funny, but it's the truth. Right? So the point here is there's so many ways a pilot can contribute to the profitability of an airline. But what about the next level stuff? Customer service, promoting safety, promoting the aviation industry, promoting the company, the way you dress, the way you speak, the people you interact with, the community, the circle you keep. Now, those are next level things that you don't necessarily have to mention. But here's the thing, right? When you go into an interview, or if I'm interviewing somebody and the person is able to demonstrate that next level thinking, it makes my job a lot easier. It makes my life a lot easier in the process, because everybody will tell me single engine taxiing. Everybody will tell me, conserving fuel by flying high at high altitude. But when somebody starts to talk about customer service, when somebody starts to talk about safety and how they promote safety and how they try to change the culture of the company to adhere to this things that I'm sharing, like for example, single engine taxiing, and that's a next level thinking right there. Now, and how do you get to know things like this? I know that a lot of people may wonder, like, oh yeah, but I'm a cadet pilot. There's no way I'm going to know all these things. It's true, you may not know them, but if you are truly interested in the aviation industry, these are things that you will be aware of. These are things that you would have seen in videos. If you watch all this Pilot Mentor, I mean, most of you know, I don't know if it's Pilot Mentor, right? That's his channel. That's a great channel where, they show they show all these accidents and stuff like that. And they try to break it down. Air crash investigations, you learn a lot from those things. And your goal isn't to just show up to an interview just because you got an opportunity. I want to make sure that this person is truly interested in the aviation industry, especially if they're going to be paying for your training. It's going to cost a lot of money, but it requires that you do your part. So that is the, think, and to put it back in context. The point here is, if you ask the question, know your main points and know your supporting points. That's really what I'm trying to drive at. If you ask the question, know your main points, know the supporting points. A main point in the question of what can a pilot do to increase profitability would be, yeah, saving fuel. Fuel is very expensive when it comes to flying, right? That's a main point. Single engine taxing. Now, how do you save fuel, right? Single engine taxing, flying high, not flying as clean as possible, all right, until it's necessary. Following 3-to-1 descent planning, shutting down the engines when they're not when you're on the ground and you have an extensive delay, things of that, right? Those are things that you can do. But the next level things or supporting points would be providing good customer service. When you provide good customer service, those people will come back to you, to the airline. Being a professional, right? That means you take care of your people, you take care of your customers, you take care of the people you work with, because when you take care of your team members, they'll provide good service to the customers as well. That's the supporting points right there. And if you're given the time to really elaborate on your points and the things you're saying, maximize it, because at the end of the day, it would make you stand out. And that's really what you want to do on your interview. You want to stand out. Everybody would say similar things, but the people that have that next level thought process, that are not just thinking about the surface things, right, are the ones that the airline will want to choose. It's as simple as that. All right, I'm going to take a break on that. Let me just try to answer some questions here. Hello, I'm an international student with family. Okay, I think I already answered that one. As well, so I'm not going to waste time. Do you think the Class 1 medical standards are more rigorous in the US than those in Canada? Nope. In the US, Class 1 medical, getting the medical is not as rigorous, I'll be honest with you. Depending on, I think honestly, it all depends. The FAA has certain things that they need to do, right? The aviation medical examiner, they have the list of things that they need to check for. Now, some examiners can often take it to the next level. So it is important for you to know that, it all comes down to the aviation medical examiner. To be honest, it's not as rigorous as anywhere else that I've heard of. I know in Europe it's a lot more difficult as well to get a Class 1 anyway. Do airlines in the US make one sign a bond if they provide type rating? No, they don't make you sign a bond. Now, they make you sign a bond if they provide a bonus. If they give you a bonus, they make you sign like some type of agreement. Air transfer program is self-sponsored, but going through the entire process of applying for permanent residency in Canada is really nagging. Yeah, that's as an international student or foreigner, becoming a resident of any country can be quite difficult and challenging, and that's just unfortunate. That's just what it is. Yes, for self-sponsored program, however, you're paying for it, so make sure that you truly know what the terms you're signing up for. I think some schools, for most places are fair, right? But some places will make you sign ridiculous contracts or make you sign ridiculous, things that you have to stick to, and that may not be in your favor if you do not read in between the lines. All right. I only have 2 GCSEs as a 25-year-old. Would the British Airways scheme be okay to apply with only 2? No, I don't think so. You need at least, I believe, 6, isn't it? I believe that they need at least 6 of GCSEs, if I remember correctly. So I know that 2 would not work. And then there's certain level of GCSE that you need to have as well, level 6 and above for British Airways anyway. So I don't think so. But here's the thing, right? You can always apply to the programs when they open up. You can always try, Currently taking your A-levels, best of luck. Just, work on it. Try to look at the requirements for those airlines and then apply as long as you meet the requirements. I think that'll be your best bet. Cadet pilot programs for some of us in other parts of the world are really hard to get into. What can we do? Yeah, you have to understand that depending on what part of the world you're in, I know what you mean. I grew up in Nigeria myself, and there are no career programs out there. There are no sponsored programs out there. And if you're lucky, if you get a government sponsored program, honestly, you probably need to know somebody in that government agency to get selected. So I know what you mean. And honestly, it comes down to you trying to position yourself in the put yourself in the right place. You know, sometimes being in the same place that has no opportunity, all right, there's nothing you can do. If you remain in that place, if you want to get an opportunity, you may need to leave the place that you are. That's just the honest truth about it. If I were to stay where I grew up, right, I don't know if I'll be here. And that's just the truth about it, right? So my recommendation to you is do what you have to do to give yourself the best opportunity at this, if this is what you want to do. Now, I also know that, you know, you can always try to go get education and go to college, raise funds on your own, save some money. You can do those things. That's possible. But if you truly want to get into these programs, you have to be in places that those programs are available. That's just a simple way to put it. Let's see. Hey, Stephen, for airline interviews, what tips can you give to really stand out? I'm thinking of going down the modular route. Yeah, for airline interviews, right? Just to make sure you're not talking about the flight school interviews. If you're thinking about flight school interviews, because that's where you have to think about what route to take. If you're thinking of the integrated or you're thinking about the modular, right? For the flight school interviews, let me address that to start with. The flight school interviews, I think they're usually more straightforward. The airline interviews can be very complex. And that is really why, depending on what level of experience you have and what level of qualification you hold, your preparation will be slightly different. For example, when I was trying to going from flight school to an airline, I didn't know a lot of things that I now know. But as I'm trying to apply to like a major airline, then a lot of things that I needed to know, right? So the point here is it all depends on the level of qualification and what you're trying to go for. If you're just starting your training, then you don't need to worry about airline interviews. If you're trying to apply to flight schools or an ATO, you don't need to know about airline interviews. They are not applying to an airline. I mean, the flight school probably just ask you why do you want to become a pilot? Why did you choose the school? And then, you know, what are they want to test that you know what you're getting yourself into, right? And you understand the training footprint, you know how to overcome the struggles and the challenges of training. You understand how to what is required of you, right? In terms of the dedication, the time, the cost, all that stuff, right? But remember, the flight school is there. It's a business as well. In as much as they're trying to, of course, promote aviation and put out good candidates, they also have a business to support. So the requirement to get into a flight school isn't as hard as a requirement to get into an airline. And that's why I'm saying this. So that's why I said, you know, in order to go to an airline though, there's so many things that you have to prepare for. And it's not something I can discuss with you right here because it's going to take the whole day. But the point here is every airline do have their requirements. Every airline do test for several different things. And your knowledge about that airline prior to you applying will go a long way in order to succeed. It's as simple as that. Let me make sure. Just a second here. Yeah. I like that. So not only that, so I gave an example earlier of, you know, how can a pilot increase the profitability of an airline? And I gave a reference to, you know, if you make bad landings, for example, and you have ash on the brakes and things like that, you increase the maintenance cost of the airline, which is not good, right? So Mr. Freerunner said, you know, not only that, you know, if you keep landing badly, the customers will think the airline is bad. And that is true, right? The reputation of the airline goes a long way. And it all starts with how you, the pilot, treat your customers as well. And, you know, you land well and you follow safety rules and things like that. So, yep, that's important. Thinking about applying to EasyJet NPL, anything I could do to make me stand out. I'm currently a glider pilot. If it helps, absolutely. Having a glider certificate or license is great, you know, or experience even. right? If you think about it this way, any experience that you acquire that is aviation related will help you in any of these programs. It just establishes the fact that you are truly interested in the job. So that would tick off that motivation aspect. And since you already have a glider pilot rating or license, it also shows that you are not new to aviation. It shows that you understand basic things like aerodynamics, lift, right, drag, all that stuff. You understand those concepts. So it's going to help you stand out already. Now, in order to take it to the next level, though, you can think about how you are able to answer your questions, right? And I think when it comes to interviews, right, especially the interviews, let me take a step back. Standing out starts with your CV. I think I've covered that a lot in some of my videos, so I'm not going to really talk about that. Your CV will help you stand out from the onset. But the next thing to that is, of course, getting through the assessment and all the things you have to do. But when you go in for those interviews, right, your next level thinking, your ability to think beyond just what you are asked and add, like I said earlier, having main points, having supporting points are very crucial. That would make you stand out. That would let you see that you think beyond just what you're asked. All right. So, and I'm thinking of something else in my mind now. You have to remember that your interview, all right, it comes down to your ability to speak, communication, right? How you're able to. A lot of people forget that most interviews, right, majority of what you're doing is communicating. You're really sharing ideas or passing on ideas, passing on information. And if you have a good way of communicating and you have, a good level-headed, you're level-headed, you generally will do well. But what you say comes down to what you know. And if you do not have enough knowledge, all right, you will struggle to communicate anything. The only reason why I can talk about these things I'm talking about right now is because I have acquired the knowledge and I've been able to use it in so many ways. And that's why I can come to you without a slide, without a presentation and trying to talk about these things. I can talk about so many things in terms of preparing for interviews, right? Using different concepts, acronyms, all this stuff, trying to, I can talk about those things now because I have the knowledge of it. The same thing goes with you. As you're preparing for your interview, it starts with knowing what to say. The next thing is how to say it. Next thing after that is when to say it, right? I think I've shared this acronym in the past, and it's called LARE. It's again, I wish I could write, but I don't have anything to write on right now. LARE, which is LARE. It's an acronym for listen, analyze, respond, and example. Those four things that I just mentioned to you, let me repeat that again. Listen, analyze, respond, and example. Those four things are really what you want to be doing during your interview. Yes, use STAR, right? So during your response, right? So listen is the first thing. You want to make sure you're actively listening. You want to make sure you give yourself the room to make corrections if for any reason you feel like, and I think let me do this here. I don't know if you guys can see this, but I just wanted to show this real quickly. That's what I mean, all right? That's the acronym itself. So L-A-R-E. So yeah, LARE, all right? But the L stands for listen, the A stands for analyze, the R stands for respond, and the E stands for example. Under the response, all right, that's where you can have things like STAR and, T-DODA and PACE, all these acronyms, right? All these acronyms are things that you don't have to use them if you have done the practice well in advance. I don't know if these other people can see it, right? And I guess it's upside down. I don't know. I hope you guys can see it well, right? I hope it makes sense. But the point here is, if you don't have to memorize any of those things, you don't even have to, you shouldn't be thinking about it when you go in for an interview. You shouldn't be thinking about it. You should have done your practice well in advance before you show up, so that as you are describing the things you're saying, it goes in that order. All right. So if you are talking about a situation, if you ask the question like, tell me about a time something happened, right? Tell me about a time you failed at something. Tell me about a time you were challenged at a job. Tell me about a time you challenged an authority. Tell me about a time you exercised your leadership skill. Tell me about the time you failed as a team. These are all different questions, right? And the list can go on and on and on and on. But there's always a common theme, right, in all the questions. And this is where I talk about the element in a question or the subject in a question. This is something that I can talk about this all day long. If you have a good listening skill and you can break the questions down into different bits, right, and identify the specific competency, because that's really what they're testing for. Every interviewer isn't your friend. They are there to do a job. Yes, they might make you feel comfortable. Yes, they might make you feel at home and make you feel like, oh yeah, this is the best airline in the world. But what if it's truly the best airline, right? If it's truly that they like you, right? Why are they doing an interview? There's a reason why they're doing the interview. And that interview, the reason is because they want to make sure that you have the skills, the knowledge, you have the motivation for the job. And most importantly, those competences. Now, what throws a lot of people off is when they don't have the ability to discern in between those things that I just mentioned, in between those questions, right? To discern what they are looking for. So if there's something that I want to encourage you to do is, be versatile and be versed with different types of interview questions, but doing your research, doing the homework, studying, reading. Today I was reading about some article that honestly I have no business reading on, right? It was something about sustainable aviation fuel, right? Why am I reading that? That's because if I'm going to be coming to talk to you about these things, one, I have to know it. But the other thing also is it's because I'm actually interested in the topic. And my goal is I want you to know that it's not necessarily about what's the word? It's not necessarily about the amount of years of experience. Yes, that helps. And honestly, that helps me, right? But if you are saying that you're interested in aviation, the questions you are being asked are things that you are expected to know. And the amount of homework you do is going to pay off or not pay off, right? On your interview. It is quite simple. All right. A lot of talking. Let me see. I'm gonna go back to. I hope I answered that question. And I know, again, I'm not trying to go through a presentation and trying to give you a slide and all that. No, I really want to answer the questions that you guys have. So anyway, that's to answer your question about standing out in an interview. All right. I think I'm kind of lost in the questions, right? Thinking about applying to EasyJet. Okay. I hope that answers your question about applying to EasyJet. The point here is be knowledgeable about the airline, be knowledgeable about the program you're getting yourself into, have a good CV, right? And I think I've talked about what you can do to show that you are just more than a person, right? More than your human side, right? Do you volunteer? Do you help out? Do you any extracurricular activities that you do that may be related to aviation or not related to aviation? Those things can help you stand out, right? At the end of the day, these airlines want somebody that is well-rounded, right? Well-rounded in the sense that you can be a professional, you are knowledgeable, you can stick to procedures, you understand the importance of safety, you understand the importance of customer service, good communication, situational awareness. These are all the competencies that we can keep going on about. But if you have a good knowledge and you can show that you have somehow you've applied those skills, those knowledge or competencies in different areas through your experience, it's going to go a long way. All right. Absolutely. Somebody just asked this question, and I think I'm going to share this here. The person says, this is Frederick. It says, do you think working at an airport from a young age helps with showing passion for aviation? Absolutely. All right. Especially you said at the young age, right? At the young age, there's some roles that you may not be able to take, right? And you may not have the funds to go start a glider training or start your private pilot training. But working at an airport, if that is what you can get, that is a way to, first of all, it shows that you are interested in the world of aviation, but also it will help you network. All right. And that is something that a lot of people don't consider. When it comes to aviation, your network can really change the outcome of how far you go in your career. And I can go on about that because I have seen how knowing, just having a friend in a field or having a friend in an organization can change how you maybe get hired, having the right information that can help you get hired, things like that. So back to your question, absolutely. Working at an airport at a young age, you meet pilots, you see airplanes, you're motivated on a constant basis, and you're working there, which means that it shows that you can dedicate yourself to something. It definitely helps. And there's so many jobs out there. I know a common one is to work as a fueling agent or a marshal or a ground marshal. There's so many jobs. You can work at a FBO. Here they call them fixed based operators. But whatever the options are, it starts with you putting yourself out there, all right? Going out to make sure that to seek what opportunities are there for people of your age and experience. And that's why I always encourage you, if you're interested in aviation, if you're thinking of becoming a pilot, put yourself out there. Talk to people in the aviation world. And I get a lot of messages from people, whether it's on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, I get all these messages and people are asking, and I will share with you what I know, right? When I grew up in a place where there wasn't a lot of aviation opportunities, and I know what it took out of me, right, to stay focused, because you don't get to see a lot of, especially in the Western world or European world, or you don't get to see a lot of, in comparison to the Western world, right? You don't get to see a lot of airplanes or flight schools or just aviation organizations that you can be part of in the place I grew up. So that's the truth about it, right? So I didn't have an uncle, I didn't have an aunt, I didn't have a brother, I didn't have a friend, none, zero in aviation, right? So I know what it takes and I know what it means to have somebody that you can talk to, that you can send a message to and the person will respond. I can share my story. I remember back in 2007, 2008, when I was thinking of flight schools, I went on, was it Facebook? I can't remember. Maybe it was Facebook. I think it was Facebook. Maybe 2008, 2009. I think Facebook was around that time anyway. I went on Facebook, was sending messages to all these people that at least they had airplanes in their picture and I thought they were pilots, right? None of them, zero, responded, zero. And that is what fuels what I do. Honestly, like a lot of people may think, I don't care about number of subscribers. If you like, subscribe. If you like, don't subscribe. That's the truth about it. But the fact that if you know the messages I get, like people sending me, oh, they're starting their training. In fact, I have a message here. If I minimize this, I'm going to minimize my other thing that is going on my TikTok here. But the point here is, this guy's messaged me yesterday, and I don't know if he's watching this. He told me that he got his private pilot license already. I knew when he started. I knew I was the one encouraging him to get started. Those kind of messages makes me happy, right? And the list can go on. What about the guys that get through the cadet schemes, where they come back and tell me that they go through because of my videos on YouTube, right? And that makes me happy. That's what fuels this. I would spend time with people one-on-one. I would spend time in groups. I would do all these things. That is what fuels this. Right? It's not because of the views. It's not because of the subscribers. It's really the passion for the field. And I know exactly what I went through, right? Looking for somebody to just tell me what to do, where to go. And honestly, it's so easy nowadays to connect, right? You have all these platforms, but back in the day, I'm saying back in the day, like it's like 100 years ago. But point is, 2010, 2008, 2009, you didn't have all these platforms. You didn't have anybody on YouTube that I can reach out to. You didn't have anybody even on Facebook. All the people I reached out to, zero. None of them responded, right? So that is really where this comes from. And that's why I don't show myself flying. Because yes, it's good when you see somebody doing it, right? but I really want to show how to do it, how to get into it, how to get that job, how to get that scholarship, how to get into that cadet scheme. I really want to share that information, right? As long as I have it anyway, and I know it. If I know it, I'm sharing it. It's as simple as that. And if you come to me and you ask me questions, I will respond to you. It might take me some time, but I'm going to respond to you. Why? Because I'm so passionate about this. That's the truth about it. And like I said, I went through the pain of just trying to get into a flight school. I went through the pain of just trying to become a pilot. Now, I haven't done this for over 14 years now. I think I know enough that I really want to help other people. That's just the truth about it. Anyway, enough of that. All right. Let me make sure I'm not losing questions here. All right. Let's see. You get in with a trade job, not saying it to see reaching in demand. Yeah, I like the advice here. So if you're thinking of becoming a pilot, you're trying to raise the funds and you're in a place where you can't raise the funds, know that you can go find a job that pays well. So if you need to go to school, study hard, do a study a good course that will give you a lucrative job, right? And you save money for maybe 5-10 years on that job, and then you go train. I mean, if that is what you want, yeah, you might be older. Yes, it might take time, but if truly that is what you want, it's going to be a beautiful story at the end of it all. Because when you show up to that airline and you tell them how you went through your journey, then people are impressed by you, right? You were not just handed the funds, or you just didn't blow your chance. You put yourself through training, you remain dedicated, you remain focused, and you got the job done. So it's going to be a beautiful story. And I know that a lot of people will think, oh, it takes time, but trust me, 10 years go by like this. I mean, I am talking about when I first started. It's over 14 years, 15 years now. So yeah, anyway, that's that. I've been talking to some candidates from the Speedbird program for BA. Most have told me they got to the end, but were unfortunately rejected. Could you give me some advice on how to avoid this? Yeah, so let me say that, all right? You're right. Here's something to understand about cadet schemes. And I think it is very important, very, very important that you manage expectations. Very important when it comes to these cadet schemes. Did you know, if you do not know, all right, did you know that 40,000 people applied to the Speedbird program? And right now, in total, they are down to maybe 330 or less than 400 in total that are left. And they only need 100 people, 100 candidates. So I don't want you to think that, yes, you may have done a lot of work, you may have studied hard, but there's just the chances of getting selected are very, very slim. Now, that doesn't mean that you cannot get selected. You that you're watching this video, right, wherever you are, that doesn't mean that you cannot get selected. It just means that you have to work hard to be exceptional. And honestly, that is the best way I can put it. You have to work hard to be exceptional. And back to what I'm saying, right? That means you can't be giving one-word answers or one-sentence answers, if that's the way you want to put it. You know, you have to know more than just an average person when it comes to these programs, especially when you get to, remember, as you go through the stages of this selection process, it gets harder. That's the truth about it, right? And you can't show up and say that you only know, you only know a few things. You have to show up that you know a lot of things. And that is where those competencies come in. And I think I was talking about the acronym LEAR, right? Examples, that's the E aspect of it. I'm kind of going back and forth here, but bear with me. The example there, right? If you have a lot of stories, right? If you have a lot of experiences, your ability to actually relate them to the competencies is so important. But then, of course, if anything, make sure you're able to relate it to aviation examples or examples that are that helps you connect the information. Remember, you're communicating with somebody. So at the end of the day, you want to make sure the person understands what you're saying. and using examples will go a long way. So the point here is, how do you avoid getting rejected? I can't tell you that this is what you have to do to get rejected. I can tell you the many things, right? There's so many things you can do to avoid getting rejected. Of course, studying, practicing, all the things that I talk about, right? Knowing how to present your information, how to deliver that information. Those are things that you can do, right? There's so many things you can do. But at the end of the day, right? Just because you are not selected or you are selected doesn't mean that you are better than the next person. I shared a video on my YouTube channel where I talked about the importance of, understanding the interviewer, the role of an interviewer. As an interviewer, right, there's so many things they are contending with. They're contending with time, their bias, their beliefs. They deal with what we call halo factor or halo effect. All these things, their listening skills, right? Their own listening skills. And one person may go through an interview, an applicant, a candidate may do one interview today and may score, let's say, 100%. And tomorrow, another interviewer would interview that person and score the person 90%, right? So sometimes there's that factor there where it all comes down to you on the day of the interview as an applicant, and it also comes down to the person that is there on the other side. Hopefully that person will help you perform. Of course, getting through the assessments, you have to study, you have to practice. Those are things that are on you, right? If you're unable to demonstrate how motivated you are in the aviation industry or motivated for the job, those are things that are on you. And that's where I would say, do your own part. Study, like, again, this is an £100,000, maybe more, right? Opportunity. If somebody were to tell you that, here, this is £100,000 in, money, right? What would you do to get that money, right? And the same thing with this training, with these cadet schemes. Somebody's saying that this is an opportunity to become a pilot. They will fund it, they will train you, they give you everything you need. What are you willing to do for the job, right? What are you willing to do to get it? So that is something that you have to honestly work on yourself. But what I would tell you is that if you have gotten to this stage, it's a big milestone, all right? It's a big accomplishment. And that means you've been doing some things right. And I just hope that you continue to intensify your effort so that you continue to progress. That is really what you can do. And, continue to practice, continue to study, right? Know that, and I think I say this every time, and I've said it already today. These interviews, right, they're only testing for something specific, or not something. I don't want to say something. A few things, right? But they're all around the competencies. They're all around how motivated you are. They're all around your situation. I think I already mentioned all those competencies. So the point here is, do your part. Do your part. That's all I can say. What are your thoughts on studying for the ATPL part-time while having a full-time job as opposed to enrolling a full-time course? To answer your question, Simon, it's so important that if you can study for the ATPLs on part-time while having a full-time job, then do it, right? It's going to demand, it's demanding. It's going to take a lot of time, but also it's going to tell on you and how motivated you are, how interested you are in this career, in this field. And if you can pull it off and get it done, when you show up to an interview and you're able to say those things in your stories, then they know that you have what it takes. You know how to manage your workload. You know how to manage your time. You know how to get a job done, right? You know how to stay focused. Those are things that they are also going to be assessing. And if you do them, like I said, if you're able to pull it off, absolutely do it. Now, enrolling in a full-time course could also be an option for you if you have the option to do that. Of course, that means you're able to stay focused and you're doing one thing. And that's fine as well, if that's what you can do. But in terms of getting a job, in terms of going for an interview, it doesn't, honestly, either one works. You just have to do what works best for you. The airline would not look down on you because you did your ATPL part-time or you did it, no, it really comes down to what works best for you. And if you think you have the time to do to go full time, right? That means you may be able to speed up the process, right? You won't have to spend however long it would take you if you were doing it part time. This is from Alvin. It says, hello, I'm Alvin. Which grades should I get in college subjects, and my parents may not manage to pay my piloting course? What grades? You can get A's. That's great. Subject. Think about maths, think about physics, think about, the sciences pretty much, and get good grades on the subjects. So that's really it, right? You say your parents may not be able to pay for, I'm guessing you mean that they may not be able to pay for your pilot course. The truth is, yes, you may need to go on to study on your own and then maybe pay for your own training. That's also an option, right? But also don't forget that you can also use loans. By the way, I was talking to somebody that actually used a very creative way, right? I think he has a business and he was able to use some of the loans through the business in some way to fund the training. I mean, there are so many creative ways out there, but it's something that you can always consider and see what is available to you, But like I always say, you can always work, right? You can always work if that's what it's going to take you to do that, right? Then go work and do it. Let me see. I'll be applying to these cadet programs this year. I'm hoping to succeed first time. What things should I focus on to improve my chance of succeeding? For FA or FA, I don't know how to pronounce that. When it comes to applying to the cadet programs, it's so important that you, first of all, work on your CV. I always say that your CV, it all starts with your CV, right? And the next thing is your application itself. Do you meet the requirements? Do you have the qualifications? Do you have the and then generally they will ask you to write like a letter or motivation or like an essay, something like that, right? You have to be able to demonstrate that you have passion for the industry, you have the motivation for the job, and then they want to see that you have some form of transferable skills or some experience that are quite applicable to the job, right? So and you don't have to have an aviation experience. If you do have an aviation experience, it helps. But if you don't, sure, it doesn't matter. But you just have to be able to show that you can apply the competences from different job or skills from a different job, if that's your case anyway. I've passed my EasyJet MPL stage 1, currently working on my stage 2 preparation. How should I prepare to maximize my chances of passing? I'm right now using the latest pilot job, CAE. Absolutely. I think you're already on the right track. You're already using I've seen that latest pilot job website before. They do offer some good stuff. Continue to do that. I think the other one that I know is out there, I don't know. Let me see something here. This is, I don't know if you've heard about Pass as well. I'm just trying to see if they have something for EasyJet. I'm not sure. Let me go to courses. Let me type EasyJet. All right. Let me share my screen here. To think that. All right, so that's the EasyJet program. For those on the other platform, you might not be able to see this, but this is the EasyJet platform on what do you call it, Pass. All right, and here they cover the aptitude tests, they cover the situational questionnaire, they cover the personality tests, online video interview, group exercise, HR interview, simulator assessment. And what else again is here with some extras like ATP or refresher course, the math questions, kind of goes on to show all those things anyway. I don't know if you've used Pass in the past. If you haven't, you can use my discount code StephenAviate. I don't think it's under this video yet, but you can use that to save you some change. I can't remember. But you can use it if you want. If you don't, that's fine as well. You can always use the latest pilot job as well. I think that's pretty good as well. But the one that I really know is the one I'm sharing with you anyway. And to be honest, I can't remember what stage 2 and what is entailed in the whole process of going through stage 2. Right? I can't remember the details about it, but you know, keep doing what you're doing, keep preparing. If you have questions, again, I always say reach out to me on Instagram. That's the best way I can chat. You know, it's always easy to. A lot of information is lost, especially during this type of one-way information, right? But when we can chat, it's easier for me to respond and give more information. Let's put it that way. All right, let's see. Oh my God, you're welcome, guys. I'm just trying to read the questions here. I'll be applying to the programs next year. Do you think it's worth getting my class 1 before applying? Nope, you don't have to get your class 1 medical to apply. You can always apply to the programs. Well, you can always apply to the programs without, what do you call it? Without getting your class 1. That's what I mean. All right. Let's see. Somebody asked a question here. Do you know how many passed all the aptitude tests for the BA cadet program? No, I don't know that answer. But here's something I know, right? They are down to, I believe, 330 people from 40,000, right? That's a lot. 40,000, and now they're down to 300 and something. So, and they're still going down to 100. So it's important for you to know that, you know, the number of people that go through the program does, honestly. And I always say this, right? If you find it, if you for some reason you struggled through, let's say, the first phase of the Speedwell program, right? A lot of people get discouraged, and that is always what amazes me. Like, you can't get discouraged for something that is provided to you for free, if that makes sense. It's like you have the opportunity to get sponsored, to complete your training. They'll pay you. They'll give you a job also afterwards, and they'll pay for the training. And then you want to get discouraged. That should even fuel your motivation. That should fuel your passion for the field. That should cause you to go and do the necessary work, study, practice. And I will say this: you can't show up a week before these things and try to get through it. I'm going to give you some things for reference. Some guys and girls that actually go through to the final stage last year, majority of them haven't been able to make it through to this point, this time around. They got to the final stage, they didn't get selected, right? But now they applied again, and some of them have been unable to actually get to the stage. And that's to tell you, it's not really about oh, I've done it before, then it's going to be easy for me. I'll, because I got to the final stage the last time, then I'm going to get to the final stage again this time around. It doesn't work like that. Everybody starts from zero again. And I know that's kind of painful, right? But that's just to tell you that in order to really get to that final stage, a lot of things has to work in your favor. A lot of things has to work in your favor. And that's not to tell you that the people that didn't make it through are not smart, are not qualified. A lot of people are qualified, all right? A lot of people are qualified for this role. But when you have, 40,000 people applying for something and they only need 100, the bar, the threshold needs to be set really high, so that they only select the best of the best. It's as simple as that. Let me make sure I'm not missing anything here. What else? Let me see. I know. Which countries have the easiest pilot medicals? I don't know all the countries, but I know that in the US, honestly, it's not as difficult. Now, don't get me wrong. Hey, when you say easiest medical, remember, everything all comes down to your medical condition, right? Your fitness to fly, your fitness to get that medical certificate. So you need to still meet the requirements. So I won't say it's easy. Like, easy sounds as if you can be sick and be flying, or you can have a condition and still fly. No, it doesn't work that way, right? But in order to get, for example, in the US, right? If I wanted to schedule my class 1 medical, I can easily go in and schedule it right now and get it done next week. It's as simple as that, right? But it doesn't mean that it's easy, all right? Because you have to be fit, you have to meet the medical requirements to get that certificate. On the other hand, in places like Europe, where if you want to schedule your medical, from what I've heard, it can take 6 months. You have to literally schedule it well in advance, right? And it's expensive and all that stuff. So that makes it difficult. You know, in Nigeria as well, it can be difficult. It's expensive. You only have a few qualified AMEs or aviation medical examiners. So those things add to the complexity. But in the US, you have a lot of AMEs. You have a lot of, it's available, right? You just need to go schedule it, show up and get it done, right? But that doesn't mean that you're still required to meet the medical requirements, like the minimums for the medical. You are still required to meet it. Does that make sense? So I won't say it is easy. It's just that getting it scheduled is easy. You know, booking it, going in, it's cheap, right? You don't have to pay a lot of money for it. But in places like Europe and other parts of the world, you have to really book in advance. You do all this rigorous testing and all that. So yeah. All right. I hope that makes sense. Would you recommend applying for PSA cadet program? I'm currently working on my CPL in part 141. Absolutely. I went to PSA. I was at PSA. It was a great airline. I loved it. I have nothing bad to say about it. You know, I enjoyed my time there, you know, so I would definitely recommend it. You know, it's really, I had a good experience. And this also goes back to, choosing a flight school, right? A lot of people would come, oh, how was my flight school? Would I recommend it? I had a great experience. Not everybody had great experience. And, you know, when it comes to aviation, when it comes to flying, right? I always say this. Everything in life is based on your perspective, how you see things. And I don't want to get spiritual or get philosophical in this conversation, but you need to understand that two people would experience the same thing, and one person will say, man, that was a terrible experience, and the other person will say, that was a great experience, right? So I hope that makes sense. So the point here is, yes, it's good to get feedback. Yes, it's good to get some guidance from people that have done it, right? But understand that that's from my own perspective. And when I say I had a good experience, I truly mean that. I went to PSA, the flight school I went to, I had great experiences there. I have nothing to complain about. Was it perfect? No, right? Nothing is ever perfect. But right now I'm in cargo world. Is it perfect? No, it's not. Am I enjoying it? Yes, I am. I was at, a different airline. I'd be proud to where I am now. Was it perfect? No. Was it a great experience? Yes. So why did I leave? Well, because I just wanted something different, right? Not because it was bad. So the point here is, everything comes down to your own perspective in life and how you see things. And it's, like I said, it's good to get feedback. So of course, if you see a lot of negative feedback from something, there's a chance that probably it's not good, right? But that doesn't mean that one person's perspective dictates what happened or what happens or what your experience will be, so that is very important. Let's see. I'm currently working. All right. It says, I'm currently working. I love you too. Thank you. I'm currently working in an airport as a security agent, but my communication are not the best. I stammer sometimes, but it's improving now. Do you think I have a chance to become a pilot? So this is from humane being. I think that's how you say that. So I want to say that it's important to understand that you don't have to have perfect communication. You have to have something. You have to have good communication, right? Like you said your communication are not the best, a stammer. And I want you to know that I grew up and I used to stammer. Growing up, I used to stammer, right? And I think I still do it till now. Maybe not as much, but I don't know how much of that you have when you speak. As long as you can somewhat communicate effectively, right? You can talk and you're not going to, trip over your words. I think it's you can give it a shot. Now, some schools can assess you, or even a medical examiner can assess you or your ability to get a class 1, because one of the things that's required also is, you have to be able to speak English and all that stuff. So if you can, you can give it a shot and try to go for a test before you rule yourself out. I don't know how bad or how good you have it right now in terms of, if you stammer a lot or not a lot. I can't say, right? But I would recommend that you check out maybe getting the test done before you rule yourself out. The other thing also is, over time, whatever you practice, you get better. I don't know how old you are, but it gets better as you use, as you communicate, as you talk, So anyway, that's all I'm going to say about that. So I would say get it tested, get it checked out before you rule yourself out. Okay. All right. This is from Vanessa. Hi, Steven. What ways would you suggest to practice for interviews? What actions can I take to prepare? Now, great. That's really one of the things I'm talking about in this video. So one of the things you can do is know all the competencies, right? Know all of them, but at the same time, have experiences to be able to describe them. Hopefully, these are personal experiences. When you have that down, when you have those experiences, and if it requires you writing it down, if it requires you putting some bullet points down, do what you have to do. The next thing you want to do is use the structured method like STAR, all right? TDOTR, PACE, right? Use some of those acronyms to have a structured manner in which you are going to describe the information. The next thing I'll add to that is have follow-up questions for yourself. Let your follow-up question start with, how did you do something? Or how did you do that? Or how did you achieve that? Or how did you arrive at that? Or how did you make that decision? Like, the point is, know the how of, because whatever they ask you, expect follow-up questions. They'll ask you follow-up questions based on your resume. They'll ask you follow-up questions based on what you say. So be prepared for that. So be ready to go into detail. I mean, to make your life easy, right? When you're talking about your STAR, hopefully you're detailed enough. But let's assume that, they come back and ask you all these questions. Be ready to state the how, the why, the what, right? The what, the how, the why, the what. Because those can come in different ways. So for example, why did you make that decision? How did you make that decision? What were the specific, the specific things you did, or what are the qualities of the X thing that you did? What are the reasons you did that? So the point here is, when you can phrase those follow-up questions and have them at the back of your mind so that you can talk about them if asked, I believe you would have done a good job. Now, we can talk about, your how you communicate. We can talk about how you carry yourself, your confidence, your communication skill. We can talk about all those things. Let's assume that all those things are already in good places. You're confident. You can present yourself in the right light, carry yourself well. You're present. You listen well. You're able to articulate the question. The rest is really how structured you can be in giving the responses. And that's where, what I just listed, that's where it comes in. So it starts with practice. And I'll be honest with you, it may be weird. If you have somebody that you can talk to, that maybe the person can interview you, pick random questions that you can go online. Honestly, these questions are online, and let them ask you questions. Right? For example, why did you apply to the program? Why do you want to become a pilot? Why BA? What do you know about this? What do you know about the BA Better World? Those are questions that they can ask, right? These are just things. What would you do if you don't get into the program? How have you prepared for the program? Well, how would you deal with the challenges of the program? Right? Tell me about the time, right? Those are now the tell me about the time questions. Like, tell me about the time you failed at something. Tell me about the time you exercised your leadership skill. Tell me about the time you corrected somebody, right? You corrected a leader. Tell me about the time you you work together in the team or work with a team member or a teammate. Tell me about the time you corrected a team member, right? Or a teammate. Now, the questions can go on and on. But the point here is, if you understand the competencies, you have your stories down and you're able to adapt them to different scenarios or different competencies, it will go a long way. And be ready for follow-up questions. And I think this is my time to state this. It's so important. Your follow-up questions, right? Be very careful about what you say in an interview. Be very careful about what you say in an interview, because that person that you're talking to will have to make a decision about you. So that means whatever you're saying, right, whatever comes out of your mouth is something that you already thought about. You already have. And the goal of the interviewer, honestly, is really to catch you off guard. That's the honest truth about it. Yes, they want to make you comfortable, right? But at the end of the day, they want to test you. It's a test for a reason, right? It's not like a chat. It's not a coffee chat with a friend. It's a test. So at the end of the day, you want to put yourself in a position where you are able to, of course, say the things that you mean, be honest and all that stuff. But you want to be able to put out that information, making sure the competencies that are being tested for are addressed. If you say a lot of things and you do not address the competency, you will lose points. The last but not least is, I think I already covered this earlier, is to have main points and supporting points, right? When you're asked a question, always have a main point, have supporting points. Try as much as you can to not just state one thing and leave it at there. Always have supporting points, and the more you have, the more you know, and the more you can, be concise with information and be direct with it, right? The better for you. And of course, practice, right? Practice goes a long way. What is asked in the psychometric analysis test? Usually they're testing for your attitudes, your behavior, and sometimes they might try to test for your retention, right? How you remember things. Like it's almost like it's called like a psych evaluation sometimes, like a psyche, right? How you think, your personality. Those things are tested for during this psychometric evaluation or analysis. The whole purpose of that is just to make sure that you have, not everybody can think the same way, not everybody will see things in the same way, and the tests generally you can't really prepare for them. It's good to be exposed to some practice. I think I was sharing one on PASS earlier. Actually that one is a personality test, not a psychometric test. All right, but this doesn't have a psychometric test there. Sometimes you can't really prepare for them, but it's good to understand there will be instructions to know what each test is, asking you to do, right? Before you take a stab at it so that you don't do the wrong thing. But that's really it. That's all I can say about that. What ways would you suggest to practice for interviews? What actions? Okay, I think I already answered that. Hi, Steve. I'm about to attend Pilot Careers Live, a conference for aspiring pilots with many flight schools and airlines present. What do you think would be the best questions to ask them? Honestly, to your question, QC Aviation, it really comes down to what are you looking for, right? Yes, there are so many questions you can ask every airline or flight schools and all that, right? But for example, you go there and ask them about what opportunities are there for aspiring pilots, right? Maybe they offer some programs, maybe they offer some schemes, right? Cadet schemes, sponsored schemes, right? If you're an aspiring pilot, I'm guessing. On the other hand, you could also think about things like, for flight schools, for example, their training program, their training footprint, what's the average length to go from 0 to hero, right? To complete their training. Those are questions you can ask them. The other thing also is maybe for the airlines, if you go to a particular airline you're interested in, which I would suggest that you do, you ask them their plans for maybe growth, maybe their opportunities, again, if there are opportunities for people that are coming up, if they are hiring out, what's their growth plans. Those are things you can ask. Retirement plans, hiring plans. What else? If, for example, they have tests, Oh yeah, this is an important one. If they have some tests that they do, you can ask them what's the best way to prepare for those tests. Those are questions you can. And this also goes for the flight school as well. If there's a flight school that you're trying to go to or you're planning on joining, you can always figure out how to plan for those. How to plan. So I can see you. That's cool, man. It's funny how did you even find this? Because usually I don't talk about this one, but I guess the algorithms does its thing, right? Yeah, so the flight schools usually, you can always ask them how to prepare for those assessments, how to study for them, the opportunities that are there, things like that. I hope this makes sense. So I'm thinking also, and that's a great place to network, to have contacts of people that you can always relate to or call, or maybe through LinkedIn or social media, right? And they can always give you advice on how to go about things. So I think that's really all you can do when it comes to that. I know it depends on aviation school, but kindly estimate for us the average tuition required until one starts earning from aviation. I'm guessing you're trying to know the average cost of tuition. So like you said, it depends on the school, it depends on the country, it depends on location, but I'm going to be specific to say the US. In the US, you should expect your training to cost somewhere around 70 to 100,000 and above, right? And I say 100,000 and above because if you're thinking of going to like a aviation university where you're going to get a degree, then it's definitely going to cost more. On the other hand, if you are, what's the word? On the other hand, if you just go to a flight school, then it's going to be cheaper. So a flight school generally costs you between 70 to 100,000 nowadays. Sorry, that was unintentional. What if someone is in their 30s? Is it seen as a con? No, it's not. Depending on the program, depending on the airline. Some airlines will tell you to only apply if you are less than 30, or if you're, but generally speaking, honestly, 30 is still, in your 30s, you said actually 30s. That's not too old. It's not seen as a con, honestly. For most places, and again, I would say depends on the airline, depends on the location, the country, all that. For most places, it's not seen as a con. All right, it's something that it all goes down to the airline itself, based on what they want. What do you think of paying training with low interest credit cards? One, how much credit limit is on that card, right? Because flight training is expensive, and if you're unable to pay back that money, the loan can really accumulate to a lot of money, right? So I wouldn't recommend using a credit card for trading. Now I get it if you just have to pay for like a check ride or a flight and you're only spending $500 or $300 or something and use a credit, but to use a credit card to fund your training from zero to till you complete it, that's something I wouldn't recommend. It's a very expensive process, and a credit card would have interest rates anywhere from 17% to 30% or even more. And using a credit card is not what I would recommend. It's always best to find a fixed interest loan. All right, maybe a school education loan, student loan, something like that, for your training. Then you wouldn't want to use a credit card anyway. Let's see. Well, I hope that has answered most of the questions. Honestly, I really thought I should just get on here, kind of catch up, share my few thoughts about things. And otherwise, I would call it a day. I'm actually hungry. It's been nice hanging out with you guys, chatting, answering your questions. Thank you so much for those of you that have, asked questions and all. You made it more engaging, and thanks for the likes, and all that stuff too. It goes a long way. I would love to see you guys in the future ones. So if you haven't subscribed, feel free to subscribe. Don't forget to drop a like. And thank you, and have a nice weekend.